Shepard was asking for it for three.
Well, he felt it, didn't he? He was begging.
Oh, what a play by Matt Mitchell.
To Watson, sees a lane, takes it underneath. Montana three.
This is a clinic. This is Aztec basketball.
Welcome back, friends. We've had a little bit of a holiday break, but we are here with another episode of the Aztec Breakdown podcast. My name is Austin Bolton, and joining me today will be the founder of Aztec Breakdown himself, Tron. Tron, how's it going? How's your holiday break been?
You know, the holiday break was not without its drama, but overall, we're doing good. We're happy to be here. The Aztecs have won most of the games over that stretch, so you know we're all good.
Hey, I hear you. We had the whole crew here, and then we had the norovirus go through the whole crew here, so I know all about the drama that goes with it. But before we get started, let's do a little housekeeping. Don't forget to follow Tron and the show at Aztec Breakdown. You can follow me on all socials at It's Austin Bolton, Kyle at Call Me Kinslow, Carly at Car McGee, and Jacob over at Aztec Analytics. And also on Spotify, wherever you're listening to your podcast, don't forget to rate, like, review, leave comments, give us your thoughts, what we can do, what you really like. You know, if there is some, constructive feedback, you could put it in there, but, be nice. But yeah, so we've been gone for a couple weeks here over the break. So it's going to be a little different than just our normal game recap. So let's go through some of the games that we missed, just quick kind of one-hitter thoughts, and then we'll kind of get into New Mexico, the macro state of the program, and then look forward to Colorado State. How's that sound, Tron?
Yeah, sounds good. I think we're starting with Boise.
Did we do a pod after Utah State? Did you do one after Utah State?
I don't remember, actually. Let's start with Utah State. Why not?
Okay. All right. What's your headline from Utah State?
So here's the thing with Utah State. The headline is Utah State is for real. And I've been saying that since like the second game of the season. I do think, so Kyle was saying, I think on Blue Sky, he mentioned that like the Aztecs let that one go, and his opinion seemed much more along the lines of the Aztecs lost it rather than Utah State won it. And I ultimately think it's a little bit of both, but I would give a lot more credit to Utah State because just the way their defense played seemed to kick up to another level in that second half especially. And they've done that a couple times now. I just watched them do it again last night against Boise State. So like this team, they have all the confidence in the world. They have all the determination in the world. They just don't go away. And they just, when they're down, they kick it into another gear and they find ways to win. I do still think the Aztecs are better overall, but like they're a good team.
Yeah, I was watching that Boise game last night too, and it's like they just didn't quit, right? And they kind of have another gear when they're behind. And that matchup zone, it really throws people off. Like at first, Dagenhart was kind of hitting everything in that game, and then they kind of locked him down. And it was the same way what they did to the Aztecs a couple weeks ago, right after Christmas, where they just were able to rotate, and the way that they're able to move within that zone to just kind of clog the middle up, not really allow any kind of head of steam to get downhill. But man, I said this a couple weeks ago with Carly. It's just like, how do they keep doing this? It's like that meme from Breaking Bad. Like, how does Utah State keep getting away with losing their good coach and all their players and rehash it in the transfer portal, and then they just do it all over again? Like, it is that meme down to a T when it comes to Mountain West basketball.
It is insane. Aztecs were very impressive on the glass that game. That was my number one concern. I had done a pod previous talking about how like Utah State on the glass would be the reason why they would win, and it actually wasn't. They only had 5 offensive rebounds, did the Aggies, all game. And so they won by 1 point. It was a fun-ish game for like neutral observers. Maybe could have been higher scoring, but like a little bit of back and forth and Utah State determination. So yeah, it was definitely try and get them next time.
It was definitely the first glimpse of the offensive droughts, because I felt like the offense had been pretty good. You know, they held with they obviously won the Houston game, scored 73 points against them. Then have a crazy outburst against Fresno State. Looking, the offense is looking, the Cal game right before the Utah State, the offense has been looking good. And then that Utah State game was the first one now in this 4-game stretch of these prolonged offensive droughts that, are within the fabric of the program, just that's how it is. And that didn't really show itself much throughout the early part of the season. And that was the first game that really showed up.
Do you think, I thought one of the things was just the ball just gets sticky sometimes, and there's but it seems like a lot of the time when they're doing these droughts, it seems to me like there's very little off-ball movement. Is that something you're seeing too? Yes,
and they don't get any assists. They're 290th in the country in assist rate. Like they're not moving the ball. They love to do the dribble handoffs to try to lube up the offense a little bit, get a little oil in the offense, and then then at the very end it gets stuck in there. When they're in these moments, it's like, okay, Magoon gets it in the post and then he dribbles it in traffic and he gets a turnover. Or Nick Boyd, kind of will dance at the top and get to the block and kind of shoot it into the 3 defenders. Or something or another to where it turns into 1-on-3. That's definitely when they're at their worst.
Yeah. So it seems like just nobody's moving unless they're running to get the ball on a handoff. Like everybody else is just standing around, and it drives me crazy.
All right, let's get to a more fun one. Boise, just kind of your quick thought off the top about the Boise win.
Boise was super impressive. I'm trying to pull up the box score again really quickly. I think Bird had his career high that game, right? 22 points. I think just not even looking at the box score, just going up into the hostile Boise arena.
Not so hostile, according to Mark Ziegler.
And not so. What did he say? I didn't see it.
It was, and even their fans, they totally revamped their pregame intros and how they engage the fans, because they were calling it extra quiet arena or something like that. And it was one of they just had this huge lull after the Fiesta Bowl. So all their fans were just kind of tired. Oh. And and the students weren't there. And I noticed it on TV, but it definitely wasn't Utah State or the Pit. That's for sure.
No, I think just Boise State is almost like the anti-Utah State in the sense that they're a very good team, but they've been finding ways to lose more than win. And the recent history of them winning 6 of the last 7 against the Aztecs, to go up there and win. I think in the broadcast they said the Aztecs hadn't won there since 2020, and there's they
couldn't stop talking about it. They couldn't stop talking about it.
They didn't play there in 2021, right? Because the COVID season, both the games against Boise were in San Diego. But yeah, still, they hadn't won there in a long time. So to go up there and beat a good team on their own floor helped make up for the loss of Utah State a little bit. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that was, if you lose one at home, you got to find one against a top tier team on the road. That's, if you go kind of 500 on the road in the conference, and you kind of when you tier it out, if you lose, and go undefeated at home, and if you lose one at home, then you got to find one on the road, and they found it. Right. It would have been great to get the New Mexico one, because that would have been kind of one more in that column.
Yeah.
But it was a great win. I think our group now matches up better than we have in the past. This group, there's more length, a little bit more athleticism. I think they've lost some length and a little bit of athleticism, and I just think we match up. I think we match up way better against Boise than we have the last couple seasons.
Yeah, hopefully they can keep it up in Viejas and get the win there too, and sweep Boise and start to fix that recent trend here.
All right, so let's move to the tale of 2 games with Air Force, which had about the ugliest 9 minutes to start a game since maybe the Wyoming game, where they scored 8 points in the first half. And then Dutch calls a timeout, and they go on a 40-8 run after the fact. That's my first thought on that game is just, first off, great adjustment. And just, this team has the firepower. They were just caught in a trap game, quite frankly.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely was an ugly start, but they were able to fix things and pull it out. And I thought it was 40-4 run. Honestly, it was regardless of what it was. it was super impressive the way they were able to turn that around and hold Air Force scoreless for like multiple 5-6 minute stretches.
I feel legitimately bad for them in the sense of just
it's tough.
like they're losing all their guys after their second year to the portal. They can't get anybody into the portal. You know, they're just so outmanned and outgunned. Like, I mean, Petritus is tearing it up at Cal after kind of warming.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a tough. It's a tough scene for them when they're going up against these elite schools, like, you know, these top 25, top 30 schools. It's just not a fair fight.
It's not. And I mean, ultimately, like, it's the Air Force Academy. They aren't there to play basketball. Basketball is like a bonus, but it is what it is. It would probably be in the best interest of the basketball team to not play in the Mountain West. But given Air Force got, I think, the second highest like guaranteed money from the Mountain West to stay and not leave, so they will be there for a while.
I mean, the fact that all the good basketball teams are leaving is definitely helpful to them, you know, because they'll still be fine in football.
A little
bit. They got enough of a football reputation that they'll get people to come to play football, and that's definitely more important to them. You know, and then the new stacked Mountain West definitely favors Air Force in this scenario. So, all right, let's get to the meat of it, and that was the game on Saturday, 10 a.m. The Aztecs lost to New Mexico 62-48. Just by all accounts, just opening up a can on the Aztecs, like they dominated that game from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
Just, you know, how worried are you about just the overall, just from this game, like how worried are you? Or how concerned should we be?
I mean, I don't think I'm too concerned. I think this game just kind of shows the range of outcomes, and I feel like this is probably the worst we're going to see this team play all year. It very much seemed like everything to me. It was like there were so many times where just they couldn't catch the ball. Like the few times they made good passes, the guy would fumble the catch and it would bounce around in their hands for a minute. There were multiple times where there would be like a timeout or a TV stoppage, or there was one time in the second half where the refs were checking the tape for something. I don't remember what it was, and then the Aztecs couldn't successfully inbound the ball after a stop play. So it was tough. I don't think it was characteristic of the team. I think there's going to be a worse game every year, and this is probably that one. We better hope that's the one, because it was just so gross. But I don't think it's indicative of that. I think you posted something just like burn the tape, and I think this was a burn the tape game.
Yeah,
what do you think?
I am not worried at all. I wrote in my notes here like 3 out of 10. Like this had blowout written all over it. It was a wonky time because of the playoffs, because of the NFL playoffs. This game got moved to 10 a.m. our time, 11 a.m. local time. That just spells trouble. This is the first time this group has really been in both an altitude situation and a sellout because the Aztecs are coming situation. And I know Chris Sparing of EVT was like, hey, this is definitely a rivalry. Like, why won't the Aztecs? And I think it is to an extent. I still think Utah State's kind of our biggest rival in the conference right now, but it is definitely, it's a rival for New Mexico, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like how how Michigan and Ohio State are rivals, and Michigan State thinks they're rivals with Michigan, but Michigan definitely cares more about Ohio State. I think that's where the Aztecs sit in this. Like, I think personally, I care much more about Utah State than I do New Mexico. While I still care and still want to win there, but I think we're New Mexico's number one shot, and I think it's just a little bit different of a dynamic. And this just had blowout written all over it. I don't know. It doesn't. I told Carly before the game, I'm like, hey, you're prepared that this could get ugly, and just kind of threw it out there. And, she's like, because she had mentioned, she's like, I'm stressed. Like, it's going to, we just need this one. I'm like, I would temper like, hey, we really need this one.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
because if we talk about just concern and just like throw the tape away, just remember the Aztecs still beat Houston on a neutral. And they're now third in the net. On KenPom, they're fifth ranked, the fifth ranked defense in KenPom. They're the 8th ranked defense on Evan Mia. And they're still the number 1 ranked in the Mountain West on Evan Mia. So there's plenty of metrics to support that the Aztecs are right there at the tippy top. Now, do they have to kind of look themselves in the mirror and be like, hey, WTF, what was that? And kind of come out with a different kind of vigor? Like, absolutely. But that's just part of being a competitor. Like, that's just part of the deal, right? And so if it would have been much more heartbreaking if we just like lost by 1, but the fact that it was just such an ass kicking, it's just like, okay, burn the tape. We obviously got to reset ourselves a little bit here and refocus on the physicality, because the one thing that was concerning, and you had mentioned this also, is just like, hey, when the Aztecs just like, they really focus on physicality and not giving up offensive rebounds, and then they have a lull. That always happens and this was kind of that game. The other thing that I thought about with this one too is it reminded me of in 2022 when they it's kind of around the same time in the calendar as when they went to Utah State and got beat down. And from the rest of the point in that season, they only lost 2 more games. It was the same kind of situation. It was just kind of a wonky part of the schedule. It was time, it was late in the middle of the week. They were amped up and we got beat down. The Aztecs only lost 2 more games in the regular season. The rest of the way through made the tournament. I think this is the same type of catalyst when it comes to just how they're going to absorb the beatdown. But I don't know. I mean, am I crazy here?
I don't think so. There's something the last couple years, maybe even back to 2022. I don't remember what happened that year, but the pit just has an effect on the Aztecs. Like, every year playing at the pit is one of the worst games, and there's any number of combination of factors for that, right? The elevation this year, the time, like you said, was a factor. The aspect that you mentioned of like New Mexico gets up for this game because they really care about it. That Michigan Ohio State analogy was so appropriate. My wife went to Michigan State, and so like I relate to that so much because her family gets amped up for Michigan, they get amped up for Ohio State, and like the other team, not that they don't care, but it's not the same level. And I mean, there's a history of a rivalry with New Mexico, right? If you go back to the early 2010s, absolutely, but New Mexico's been bad for a while.
One of the great wins in Aztec history.
Right. So like that history is there, but
it's almost like after the beatdown they took at the pit in 2020 when KJ Fagan went crazy and the Aztecs won 85-57. It was almost like they were like, never again. Yeah. And they've really ramped it up since that point in time. Here's one for you. Do you think they should do the home and home after they join the Pac-12?
With New Mexico?
With New Mexico.
That's a really good question, actually. Sheesh, I don't know, because I'm not opposed to doing home and homes. Like people want to cancel. I guess it has been canceled, but for different reasons. But people, after the last loss at BYU, there were a bunch of people that were like, stop scheduling this game because it's like an automatic loss, right? And I don't mind that. I think you have to give yourself the opportunity to beat good teams.
Also,
it would just depend on, I think. Sorry, it would just depend on how good New Mexico is. I think if they're like in the middle ground where like they're good enough to beat you but not good enough to be a resume builder, then obviously not. So I don't know. It would probably depend.
Listen, if they get the opportunity to book a home and home with BYU or a home and home in New Mexico, you take BYU 10 out of 10 times and you leave New Mexico on red. Like that is first and foremost. Like I think it's tough. I think at first you kind of do a couple if you did it, you could definitely give it a couple, like one series, and then just to let it see how the Mountain West shakes out after we bounce, with all the other top basketball schools. But there's a point where if the Mountain West drops off as badly as they could, then and it's like a 1 bid, maybe 2 bid league some years. Like, I don't think you touch it with the 10-foot pole. Like, you just don't. Like, because that game would instantly become the biggest game of their season every year. Yeah. Every time we go there. Yeah. And if they're the 10th rated net conference or the 15th rated net conference, that's only bad news for the Aztecs. That only leads to a bad outcome. There's no like super positive outcome there. But I still wish they could get the BYU one back on. I don't agree with that. For one, it's not like totally necessarily an instant loss, but it's also a P4 game that we get at their place. And assuming they come back, I think BYU would have more reason to say no to us than for San Diego State to say no to them on that. On that front.
No, I think that's why it stopped, because BYU is now part of the Big 12, and they don't need those resume building games like they did in the WCC. Let's talk about some of the players in the New Mexico game, and I think Miles Bird was still a highlight of the game, and that's that. I don't think it was anywhere close to his best game either. He seemed off a lot like everybody else, but he still finished with 14 points, had 4 rebounds, 3 steals, so he was looking good. I think he finished minus 15. I wrote it down earlier. Minus 15 on the game. So the Aztecs were outscored by 15 points when he was on the floor. Not great, but I think he was trying to do his part. I think he still has that thing that he was talking about in the preseason where like he gets too high up and too far down, but it's a little different this year where when he's down, rather than like pouting about it, he goes too hard to try and fix it, and it just leads to more breaks. Like he will run all the way across the floor trying to get a steal and just leave his guy wide open, and then that guy ends up hitting a 3 type of thing. So the issue's still there, but at least the effort is there. But overall, I thought he still looked really good. What did you think?
Listen, I was dying for them just to give the ball to him. I didn't think he touched it enough. There was points in the game I'm like, give the ball to the best player. He's the best player. Give him the ball. Like, and then he went on a nice little run where he hit a couple threes. He's the best player. He's the best defender. He had a sick pass. I want to say it was to JCJ where he kind of drove and then just did this nice, awesome little left-handed pass. And he's the best player. And if he's not in a situation where they're dying for a comeback, sometimes you just got to spam the play that works and spam the go-to. They did it with Ledee last year. It's not like it's not in their blood to do it, but he's got to touch the ball. I mean, he did have the most shots by a pretty considerable margin. I mean, Nick Boyd had 9, he had 13, so it's not like he didn't have the most shots, but I just want to see him take over games because I think he has that kind of ability. And when nothing else is working, you just have to ride your best player and hope that he can put you on his back and be Superman. And I don't think they rode him quite hard enough to make that kind of comeback.
I wonder if the elevation has anything to do with that.
That's fair.
Like, I wonder if he doesn't react. I have not been following like any Ziegler reporting lately, so I don't know if he said anything. But you know, there's always talk about some players handle it better, and maybe he wasn't handling it super well. That could be one reason.
He did have.
I was super disappointed.
The most minutes by far. He did have
the most minutes. He missed that one layup on the breakaway.
What's up? What is up with that? By the way,
it seemed like he just didn't know the guy was behind him. Like he maybe thought he was in the clear, so he was just like going for the easy layup instead of like trying to finish it through contact. Is what I was hoping happened. And then the other thing that was not concerning, but was a bummer, not that it would have mattered, was he's one of, if not the best free throw shooter on the team, and at the end of the game he got that foul and missed both of them.
Yeah.
Back-to-back misses, so that was a bummer.
That's definitely kind of a frustration / exhaustion / just I think that's just a lapsed moment. I'm not that worried about. I mean, he's like 90% on the season. Like, I'm not worried about that. But
Yeah,
it was more of a microcosm of how bad that game was going.
Yeah, I think the part to be worried about wasn't so much like, is he going to start missing his free throws now, but just the mental toughness aspect of it that he was bringing up in the preseason. Like, it might not be all the way there yet, which is fine. He's human, right? And he's still the best player on the team and still at the best game, but just something to look out for.
Hey, was he the one that you posted, by the way?
No.
Oh,
no,
man.
He was not. I forgot I posted that after the game. I was just like so distraught.
Who was it?
So, for those that didn't see it, on Blue Sky, I posted a shot chart of a player, and I just was waiting for the game to start, and I was like, somebody guess who this is. Nobody got it. It was BJ Davis.
Interesting.
And the shot chart was like red across the whole thing. Red being like you're a good shooter from that area.
Well, it's funny because I went back.
Above average.
I went back to it because there's one of the corners where he's 1 for 6 and was bright blue, and I know that Miles kind of has trouble in one of the corners too. And then after he airballed that first one, I was like, oh, maybe that one was it. But
Yep. No, Miles Bird is like 0 for 8 from that corner. From that, I think it's the right corner.
Yeah.
He hasn't hit a single shot all season from the right corner. No, yeah, it was BJ Davis.
okay. Well, we'll get to him later.
Yeah, we will get to BJ. You mentioned JCJ. I have some thoughts on JCJ, but how do you feel about his game?
You know, I think he's really come into his own with the toughness factor that I was kind of nervous about. And he even openly talked about when he got recruited to San Diego State. It's like he had the offensive game, but like he needed to work on the physicality of the defensive part. I think he's more of a steadying hand, and with some of the older guys, as much as Nick Boyd or Miles Bird sometimes, of just like being out there. But I don't know. Sometimes it still seems like there's some questionable stuff of just like he kind of disappears for stretches. But I think overall he's been a net positive this season for sure. Are we way off?
I mean, I'm not like the expert. I can't say for sure if you're way off. I feel like I don't want to be too hard on him because I do think he has his moments. He was like one of the heroes of the Houston game, and he had let's read off his line real quick here because he had probably the second best line against New Mexico. He had 10 points. 4 rebounds, 2 blocks. He was minus 12 on the game, which isn't great, but was better than a lot of other players, honestly. I do think he has probably some of those tangible things you're talking about, but he can be frustrating to watch because he has I feel like he has guard skills in a big man body. There was that move against New Mexico where he caught the ball at like the elbow and did like a hop step to the side and then was able to finish it. And it was like, wow, that is like a pro level move. That's a hard move for a 6'11 guy to pull off. And he did it and made it look so easy. But I feel like I just looked up his shooting percentage at the rim and I was surprised at how high it was. And it was at 60%, which is still not great for a big man. But I just feel like so often he just misses shots that he probably shouldn't miss at the rim, being 6'10", 6'11", and it's so frustrating.
That's why on your chart, I was like, is he sneaky hitting threes at a higher clip and not taking them? Because the 58% at the rim, I was like, oh, that definitely seems like characteristic of him. I just, it's funny though, like, in the last time we had less than 10 out of 10 things to say about Magoon, there was some traffic out there about that. But I find JCJ less frustrating than Magoon, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And Magoon had some really good blocks. I wish he would pull the trigger on these threes. I don't understand why he doesn't take them and he pump fakes and then dribbles into the lane and he has this high dribble where it's like it's messy, like.
And he doesn't have his off the dribble shot form down. So like when he puts the ball on the floor, good things don't happen, basically. He's hit a couple shots off the dribble, like in the post, but for by and large, if he puts the ball on the floor, nothing good is going to happen.
Now I was very happy to see Magoon come back on the defensive side and make his presence felt. There'd kind of been a little bit of a dip. There's obviously some game planning going on, making sure, this guy doesn't get 10 blocks a game. But I thought Magoon really showed up in a real way on the defensive side for this game. But, definitely from an offensive standpoint, I find JCJ to be more consistent and less frustrating than Magoon, because just some of the dribbling stuff with when he puts the ball on the ground, puts the ball on the floor, every time he does it, I am prepared for the worst. And I don't necessarily get that feeling when JCJ puts the ball on the floor, and JCJ will take a shot. Like, I just wish Magoon would rip, like, he's got the wingspan and the height to where most closeouts shouldn't bother him horribly much. And yet he pulls out of all of these shots that he has windows to shoot them. And they pointed it out in the broadcast. They were like, "Hey, he's got a window to shoot, especially with his height," and he just tries to put it on the ground. But I mean, this is still only his 14th ever college game. Like, he's still working through just how to play the game at this level. So I'm not worried about him, but the growing pains have definitely been pretty evident with him. And then I've just found JCJ to be more of a stabilizing force.
That's probably fair. Like, the thing that frustrates me about JCJ is, like I said, just like all the misses at the rim. It just feels like there's so many of them. Like, he should be averaging 4 more points a game than he is because of the misses, which is like frustrating. But there's value in just getting the shot up, because some of them are going to go in. Whereas, like, with Guath, like you said, if he puts the ball on the floor, it's going to the other team, odds are. Which is super frustrating, and it's like Guath needs a super minimized. Is that the word I'm looking for? He just needs like a small roll, like
simplified playbook.
These are like simplified. That's the simplified roll, right? Like, you have 3 things you do on offense, right? You do like a cut, you shoot off the catch, or like, I don't
clean
know,
up offensive
maybe
rebounds.
One other thing.
You're 7-3. Go clean up offensive rebounds.
Right, exactly. Like those are the only things I want you doing. Like, if you catch the ball and the shot isn't there, pass it and set a screen for somebody, and like, that's it. That being said, but while we're talking about Guath, he was the other big player I wanted to talk about. His line doesn't look quite as good. 6 points, 3 rebounds, did have 4 blocks. It had been a while since he had one of these big block games. And he finished +1 in the box score, and he was the only player, the only rotation player. Kimo Ferrari finished +2, but he was the only rotation player to finish with a positive plus-minus for the New Mexico game. So, in theory, if you put any value in single game plus-minus, which you probably shouldn't, but if you do, he was doing something right that game.
Yeah. I mean, his defensive presence definitely made a huge difference there when he was kind of cleaning up areas. And I will say, when it comes to defense, which I know this is kind of off of Guath, but for how good of a job the Aztecs did on Donovan Dent, for Donovan Dent to still have 16, that is one thing that makes me nervous going forward against these guys, because they did I thought they did an awesome job on him, and for him to still pop off for 16 is, I mean, that guy is the real deal. That guy is the businessman. Like, he is the new Isaiah Stevens from a faux perspective of a guard that, like, no matter what we do, can light us up. And there's not very many people that can say that against the Aztecs. And Donovan Dent is definitely that guy.
He plays with such pace, and he's so good at getting into the lane. And when he's there, he's the anti-JCJ. Like, when he gets there, he's gonna finish more often than not.
He's so smooth.
Yeah, no.
He's just like, he's so good.
I remember talking with Tom and Steve on one of Steve's YouTube shows of the preseason, and one of the questions was, would you prefer Dent or Thomas? And it was like, Dent, for sure. I think Thomas is better at making tough shots, but Dent is better at literally everything else.
Yeah.
Like, it's, and I'm sure some UNLV fans were upset about it, but yeah, no, Dent is really good, and he's going to be a problem for the rest of the season and maybe into next season, because I think he's just a junior this year.
He's
so
definitely
he transfers out.
He's definitely a guy that could go pro.
He could. They were saying in the broadcast that like he doesn't have the pro scouts looking for him, but then again, I don't know how much I trust broadcasters when they say anything. So, I mean, that being said, like he got his 16, but the defense overall was good.
Yeah.
Like New Mexico scored 62 points and had an offensive rating well below 100. So, like, despite all the turnovers the Aztecs had, despite all the offensive rebounds they gave up, the defense still did its job. Just the offense just couldn't do anything.
Yeah. It was, I was looking at their rating, and their offensive rating in that game was horrific. But their defensive rating for the Mexico game was still fine. And their Ken Pom met, I mean, they're up to 5th in the country. Their rating went up. It was really just the slog on the offensive side. And some of that was definitely due to New Mexico. Like, I definitely think New Mexico had their A game on the defensive side of the ball, but it doesn't, and this kind of can go into our next topic of just like, how do we get BJ Davis out of a slump? Because I think it can kind of be an overarching conversation about how to get the Aztecs out of a slump. Is that they don't have, it doesn't seem like they have a go-to play or a go-to set. And now this is one of those things that's impossible because we're not in the room and I don't break down film like that. But like in other years, it was like, all right, like last year, it was Jaden at the elbow, Jaden pick and roll with Lamont, and Dutch doing the thumbs down because I think that was the pick and roll play. It doesn't seem like they have an action other than maybe getting Miles, kind of like that zipper play that you were showing where they kind of get him at the top of the key that way, where they try to get him a shot. But it doesn't seem like they have an overall, just kind of something they can spam if they need it. And I think that would be huge for like BJ Davis if they had something for him to like draw, get him an easy bucket. But I think that goes along with the entire team. How would you get BJ Davis out of his slump?
For BJ Davis, I don't know. I was honestly debating if he was even in a slump until I looked up the numbers. I'm going to read them off here. So over the last 9 games, which goes back to the Houston game, BJ has averaged 6.6 points on 42% effective field goal percentage, which is pretty bad. 42% would be not a great like regular field goal percentage. So to do that, effective field goal percentage is terrible. You want to be above 50, honestly, on your effective field goal percentage. And I don't know. It was something I was just thinking about yesterday during the game because I kind of thought it's just like I wasn't worried about it. Maybe the teams are defending him different. Maybe it's just things come and go, right? Hot and cold. And then he had the game against Air Force where he had an 11-0 run by himself. Like he had 11 points in 4 possessions. And I was like, great. Like maybe he's coming back. And then, against New Mexico, 2 points. And both of those were from free throws, which great, you hit your free throws, but not a great outlook. What I would love to see, it's not going to happen, but what I was hoping to see in the season was if I had to take a step back here. When the opponent like hedges hard, that's what New Mexico is doing. So like in a pick and roll, JCJ sets the screen and Nelly Jr. Joseph comes out and like hedges the ball screen and tries to make it so the ball handler can't turn that corner, right? Gonzaga did that as well and threw off the Aztecs. Houston does a lot of that. So a lot of these games where the Aztecs didn't play their best offense is against that. I would love to see them get the ball to JCJ more when that happens on the short roll. So JCJ will set the screen and then he rolls just to the free throw line. And it's hard to get the ball there because the defense is trying to not let you get the ball there. But if you look at the first play of New Mexico, and I recorded it, so I'm going to try and post it at some point, hopefully tomorrow. But if you watch the very first play, I think it was Bird got the ball to JCJ, and JCJ was able to do something with it.
Yeah, it was a high low to Guath. It was awesome.
Right. So I would love to see stuff like that. Like in that case against the hedging defense, get the ball to the middle to JCJ, and then let him pass the ball from there. I don't love the idea of him attacking from there for the reasons I said earlier, but let him pass the ball from there because he's a good passer. He knows the game. He's a good ball handler for his size. He has great footwork and he can pass the ball. So let him do stuff, and hopefully that can get guys like B.J. Davis, like the high-low to Guath.
That would also help against the matchup zone.
Get them open.
It would also help against the matchup zone.
Right, and like that's once again like the matchup zone is tough because they're trying to not let you get the ball into the middle, right? So like there's some of that as well. But when I watch, I'm not convinced that their first look is get the ball to JCJ in the middle, and I wish that it was, because I think it would happen more often than it does, and I think that would help everybody.
He's also got a good enough midi that he can pull that right. So if they hit him on the short roll, and then say the defenders just crashed Guath, right? So he can't get the pass down. Mm-hmm. He can hit that from the free throw line. Like, I am very comfortable with him taking that. When he got the one there, it was like a 12-footer on the baseline. That was about as sweet of a shot as I've seen him take this season. And so if they got, like if you were saying they get him on the short roll, and then the defenders crash the underneath guy, I'm very comfortable with him taking that shot, and I think that's a good one. And he definitely has the vision to be a playmaker. Like, he tries. Like, there was the one where he threw the ball away, but it was because Nick Boyd didn't do what he wanted him to do. Where JCJ had the vision to, if Nick Boyd just slid down the wing, kind of halfway between the corner and the wing, he would have had a wide open three, and JCJ put the ball right there, and Nick Boyd just didn't move. But that wasn't. I don't put that one on JCJ. I thought that was good vision and a good idea.
Yeah. No, he has like a guard's understanding of the game. I don't know if he's one of these guys that had one of those growth spurts or what, but he sees the game very well. And so I don't want him being the primary decision maker, but in that specific scenario, I want him to get the ball in the middle, and then his first read would be to pass to somebody, which would require more off-ball movement that we talked about earlier. And then if that's not there, like you said, if they crash down on Guath, if they guard the shooters, whatever the case is, then yeah, he can take the mid-range, or he can do a hop step or spin or whatever to get to the rim, and he'll hit enough of those that like make it worth it, hopefully. But I wish that would be a thing. I probably need to like watch a couple games, whatever games I happen to have saved, which isn't very many of them because YouTube has been cracking down on people posting the games, but I need to probably watch some of them and just watch B.J. Davis and see what he's doing. I would love to hear if anybody else has any thoughts about how to get him going, because he started off so hot. He had like 11, 15, 14, something like that for the first couple games, and then has been 6 of his last 9 games have been 5 points or less. And I think if you can get him going, that's one of the strengths of this team, is that there's so many guys that can go off on any given night. And if Davis isn't one of them, you're losing one of those options.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. I think it's like, with the Waters thing, if he were to come back, I almost think that would be, I was thinking about this when I was thinking, man, B.J. Davis seems invisible, is that if Waters were to come back, he would start, kind of second or third game in. And I think at this point, B.J. Davis moves to the bench. But him being the microwave as the sixth man, now that's something I would be very interested in, right? Like, look at like you said with the Air Force game. He can pop an 11-0 run like it's nothing, and that's the perfect situation for a six-man. Now, we can get to this now because it's on the list, but, Reese Waters, should he stay? Should he come? Should he stay? Should he wait for next year? I mean, and I should caveat it. It's all about what Reese Waters wants, right?
100%.
It's there's not, what I want is what Reese Waters wants. But if Reese Waters wants to improve his stock to be a pro, and maybe there's some question marks there because he just broke his foot and he's been out for 6 months, I think at this point you just redshirt and come back next year. I think that's what I would do. But if he's just kind of ready to go pro, then come back. Like, I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. If he's just like done being in college and he's graduated, has a degree, like, it's perfectly reasonable to be like, hey, like, I'm going to go where I'm going to go. and I'm going to graduate, and I'll play pro where I play pro. But if it was about getting his stock up as high as possible before he's done with college, I think at this point you just worry about getting your foot to 110% and then come back next year. But what would you do if you were Reese Waters?
I'm along that same viewpoint of view, I think. And there's a lot of caveats with it, but besides, like, in addition to whatever he wants to do, he should do, right? I'm not giving him advice. I'm explaining selfishly what I would like. And I think what I would like is, under the assumption that he wouldn't transfer and go somewhere else, but he would stay at San Diego State, I would use that red shirt, or I would like him to use the red shirt. I don't know if I would in his scenario. There would be reasons to not do it. Like you said, some guys just don't love being in school. It's just not their thing, and they do have to keep up with classes and stuff. And to do that, even if he returns next year and does the first semester and then takes the second semester off, like Ben Simmons did, right? That's still a whole extra semester you have to do stuff.
You could also just be over it. Like, if you graduated and you're just like,
Right.
I'm just ready to not do class. Like, it's not, just to be fair, like, if he's graduated and he's just kind of over it, that's a fair thing to say.
Yeah.
It's a fair thing to say.
100%. We've all been there, right? Anybody who graduated high school was there their senior year, right? Anybody who graduated college was there probably for the second time, right, after their senior year of college. So that's a thing. What I was looking at was, so Dutcher said after the Air Force game and before the New Mexico game that Waters' next CT scan is on January 20th. It's 8 days from when we're recording now. I don't know, like, if we were to assume that it comes back clean, his foot, ankle, whatever it was, is healed, there's no more damage, right, and he can start ramping up again. I don't know how long it would take to ramp up, but if we assume 3 weeks, it seems like a middle ground, right? Maybe it's a little faster, maybe it's a little longer. But if we assume 3 weeks, that puts him back. I don't even remember what the date was.
San Jose State. I think it's San Jose State on February 11th.
It was like February 11th. Yeah, that would be his first game back, which, like, probably a good game to come back for, honestly. It would, like, knock some of the rust off a little bit, but that leaves you 8 games left in the regular season, and then plus whatever tournament games you get, and so potentially 3 more in the Mountain West tournament, and then however many you might get in March Madness, right, which could be 1, could be 6, whatever, but it's not that many games to show, one, that you're back from your injury, and that's assuming, like, things go well, which they might not, because not only do you have to work yourself back into shape, but then you have to knock off the rust, you have to get used to, like, playing again after being hurt. There's, like, a lot of other things that could happen that even once you're medically cleared and playing, you're not in your rhythm yet, and so it's just not that much time. And so if the goal is to improve your stock, I think you just redshirt this year and just practice and get back into a rhythm as best as you can and come back next year, and you get the added bonus of, like, this team is pretty good, and there's a lot of potential for all the core guys, Miles Bird, Nick Boyd, Magoon, Guath, BJ Davis, to all come back next year. And that's not guaranteed. There's the transfer portal. There's maybe somebody like Bird goes pro, although I haven't seen a whole lot of pro hype around him. But
oh, really? There's a pretty good amount. He's in multiple first round. There's some pretty significant.
I haven't looked.
It's like into the first round. There's a handful of things out there about him being into the first round.
I'm gonna have to look. I think I'm missing so much, I feel like, now that I'm not on Twitter anymore, but that's okay. So he could go pro if he wanted to, right? But if we assume, like, not if we assume, but there's a potential that if the core group returns with another year under their belt, right, more chemistry, potentially bring in a good transfer, right, this team can be something special next year with the addition of a healthy Reese Waters. So there would be that could be pretty enticing potentially, but ultimately that's what I would like. It just depends on what Waters wants to do ultimately.
Yeah, all fair. It's all fair game. Just again, it's whatever he wants. At the end of the day, it's just
right,
like,
and we're gonna support him regardless. Yeah. If he wants to come back this year, absolutely come back this year, tear it up, get the Aztecs to another Sweet 16. It'll be great.
Yeah. All right. What is next on the docket here? All right. So, just kind of putting it all together. What's your just overall state of what are you feeling is the overall state of the team right now?
I feel like I mostly just gave it. I think they're looking really good. The New Mexico game was disappointing, but overall they're looking really good. You mentioned like they're still the best team in the conference in KenPom. It's the same thing at Torvik. They're like 10 spots above every other team in Torvik. I think they make the tournament this year. I don't know how far they get. This could be another Sweet 16 team, or it could be a first round loss. Either one is very possible to me. But regardless, I think it's a good team. I think it'll be a fun team to continue to watch over the course of the year. I don't think they're going to go undefeated, but for the rest of the year. But I think it's a fun place to be right now. Is I think my overall state of the program. How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, we talked about this on the mailbag episode, and I think I compared them to 21 because of all of the super young guys. But in reality, I think they're definitely closer to 22, where this is the setup to the setup. The setup to the next season. 22. You know, we took a couple, like that team lost to BYU early. We lost to Gonzaga. We lost to Oregon. We lost to USC in that season. We got demolished by Utah State at the end of January. We got demolished by New Mexico at the end of January this season. And then they lost in the first, round to Creighton to set up the Final Four year with that entire core nucleus basically back. That's kind of what I'm feeling here. I'm feeling good. It still feels like it's going to be an NCAA tournament team because they beat Houston on a neutral floor and they've kept up in other games with teams of that ilk. They can definitely win some games. And this team has the proper foundation. They're just super young. Young. And it shows. And there are places that it shows. The 22 team was ranked second on defense in KenPom and 167th on offense. The Aztecs this year are ranked 123rd in offense and 5th in defense. So from a metric standpoint, it looks the same. Like defense is going to keep these, are going to steal them some games, win them a ton of games. And it's really, this core nucleus is setting themselves up for kind of the expectations for next season, pending any kind of transfer portal stuff, is going to be through the roof because of just the core that they have. And generally speaking, feeling pretty good. I feel good about just, there's just so many NBA guys that are associated with the Aztecs now. Miles Bird is getting the looks like he's definitely going to be another guy. And we're going to continue to get top guys coming this way like Pharaoh Compton and Taj DeGorville. And, it's just, they have broken the glass ceiling of mid-majors that are really power teams. Like they are in that same breath as Gonzaga finally. And just how the core foundation of the team is set up. I truly feel that way.
I've been thinking a lot about that 2022 comparison because like the metrics, like you said, speak for themselves. And then speaking to what could happen next year, and I don't want to focus too much on next year, but what could happen like between 2022 and 2023, the Aztecs didn't get any like all-star level talent. They got a year older. They brought in Jaden Ledee, but he wasn't Jaden Ledee yet, right? He was the center off the bench. They brought in Micah Parrish to replace Chad Baker-Mazara, who some might argue is a downgrade. I don't know if I would, but once again, another bench player that year. They brought in Darian Trammell, was probably the biggest one, and he has that dog in him, but he wasn't. I don't think he was ever on an all-conference team or anything. So they just like mixed in a few bench guys and they got a new point guard who was good but not great. And then all of a sudden they run to the national championship, right? Their team went from good to great in that 1 year. And so echoing that, this could be another year like that where if you just switch out a couple pieces for some pieces that maybe fit better or play a more specialized role or something, then you have an elite team.
Yeah. I love it. All right, Let's move on to a more irrational segment, our segment Homer and Hater. So if you're new here, this is just where we have an irrational take, both on the positive side, which makes you a homer, or on the negative side, which makes you a hater. Tron, give me your homer.
Sheesh, man. I'm just going to keep it easy. We're going to go with Miles Bird. Miles Bird. I posted this a little while ago. His player impact plus minus, one of the stats that I track, is currently, as of today, as of like the last week or two, is currently top 5 in San Diego State history since 2010, which is as far back as it goes. So he has been, and I expect him to continue to be, one of the best players San Diego State has ever seen. And I think that number will go up. And getting all irrational, Bird might finish like, I don't know. See, now I'm getting too rational. I need to just go crazy. Bird's gonna finish as the best player, either this year or next year, as the best player San Diego State has ever seen. He's gonna go crazy. He's gonna do all sorts of stuff, and it's gonna be a lot of fun to watch.
Who's the top 5 on that list since 2010?
Can I remember off the top of my head?
Is it
I
like
have to pull
Kawhi,
up
Thames, Malachi?
So Kawhi was the player just under where Bird is right now. So he's like 5th officially until the year is over. Here we go. Can I pull it up? My computer's dying. I know Flynn was first. It was Flynn, Thames, Jaden Ledee, and I think Jamal Franklin was 4th. And it's by year. So like it's the specific year that it happened. And so it was like Flynn 2020, Thames 2014, Jaden Ledee 2024. Those were all pretty obvious. And then I think I'm trying to pull it up. It was Franklin 2013.
He needs to throw himself one off the backboard like Jamal Franklin did, because Miles Bird definitely has some Jamal Franklin vibes. And it's not just the long shirt under the jersey. Like,
no.
It's the bounciness.
The swagger. Yep.
And I thought he tried to do it, kind of, in the New Mexico game, where he kind of threw a weird one off the bat. Like, he kind of shot a weird one in the lane. I'm like, did he just try to throw himself one? But I want to see him throw himself one off the backboard. I think that would be awesome. Dutch might have an aneurysm, but it would be awesome. All right, my homer's simple. This team's winning the Mountain West tournament.
There you go.
This team is the best team in the Mountain West. You know, they're still ranked number 1 in Evan Mia. They have the most talent. They have the best coach. And I just think they're going to be, you know, they love Vegas. I don't think, you know, how well they did in the players era in Vegas, I think really fuels them for these neutral site games. This team's going to win the Mountain West tournament. That's I still feel that way even after the shellacking against New Mexico. All right. So transitioning to Homer. So again, Homer is just an irrational take on the negative side. And so mine is actually not Aztec related. It's college basketball related. Other than the fact that college basketball is halves and not quarters, which is the number one thing on my list I hate about college basketball, that like I would change if I was the czar of college basketball, is, and actually switching to quarters would fix my hater, which is because there would be less bonus free throws, is nothing annoys me more than there's a foul on the floor and it's the under 8-minute timeout and it's a 1-1 and they go to a commercial because it's icing all of these free throws from college players. And we see it time and time again where I would love to see some real stats behind this, but this is just and I feel that it's true because I watch a decent, you know, with all of our transfers kind of around the country, I watch a decent amount of Kentucky and Ohio State and Virginia.
Sure. Yeah.
And I swear when they ice these guys after a media timeout, they must miss the first one half the time. Like, I just wish if they're going to do these media timeouts at the under whatever, don't do them on free throws. Do them on out-of-bounds plays. Like, don't do it to where you're icing these guys in high-pressure situations. It drives me crazy. And, like, the fact that if they just went to quarters to where they reset the bonuses would completely take away this issue because there'd be way less free throws. But it drives me crazy they go to timeouts before they shoot 1-and-1s because it turns it into a turnover half the time. It's, I don't know. It's just aesthetically just annoys me beyond belief.
Sure. Yeah. No, I get it. And you know what? It's a hater. It doesn't have to make sense to everybody. Yeah. So
all right, Tron. What's your hater? Give me your hater. Show me the hate.
Let's get real petty, and let's hate on New Mexico fans for a minute. Just the whole fan base in general. We are absolutely generalizing. We are stereotyping 100%. Even though, side note, there are a number that I've interacted with on the internet that I very
And
much
Jeff
appreciate.
Grammer, who their beat writer is the best beat writer in the Mountain West.
And oh my gosh, Jeff Grammer is amazing. But we're gonna just ignore that for a second, and we're just gonna generalize the entire fan base, and just say they are all awful, because I didn't even need to see it to know this was happening. That after they won that game, they started talking about how, the Pac-12 isn't gonna be worth anything, and that like they like simultaneously saying they should have been invited, but also they wouldn't want to go if they were invited because it's gonna be trash anyways, and like all this stuff. And it's like, guys, you won one game. Good job.
At 10 o'clock in the
I'm happy
morning.
for you.
At 10 o'clock.
At 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm happy for you. And like, sure, did they win the championship last year? Yeah, absolutely. Once again, happy for you. Actually, that was pretty amazing what they did, but we can talk about that later. But like, you won one game. Like, win a few more championships, and then maybe the Pac-12 can invite you, and then you can actually tell them you don't want to go, and we'll see.
Also,
if
how
you
about
stick to your word or not?
Fund your football program. You want to go to the bigger
Also,
conference.
fund your football
Fund your football program.
I don't even care about football, but people were like, New Mexico should be added for basketball, and I was like, no, they should not. If they get, whenever Patino leaves, if they get another good coach, then sure, because like Patino's been solid, absolutely. I don't know that he's been elite, but also I feel like he's going to leave some point, especially if he has another good year or two. I feel like he's going to leave, and then New Mexico, are they just going to fall into another bad coach again, or are they actually going to come correct and hire a good coach?
Well, maybe they'll bring back Steve Alford after he gets canned from Nevada because they're 0-6 or whatever.
Nevada, oh my gosh. Nevada, I could hate on Nevada too, because I thought I was drawing comparisons with them to the 2023 Aztecs team, because they had experience, they had length, they had continuity, they had physicality inside, they had all this different stuff, and I was like, this could be like a for real team, and they have been just finding ways to lose. I could hate on them
horrific
too.
luck. They almost lost to Fresno last night.
Just, oh my
Fresno
gosh.
took them to
Oh
overtime
my
last
gosh.
night.
Yeah, I was watching that one too. I was kind of rooting for Fresno, honestly, at that point. Like, let's just pull it off.
Yeah, right. It's almost better for the Aztecs if Fresno wins, because we'll beat both of them, but at least they'll have more wins at this point. But yeah, I think I like it. The state of the Mountain West is is strong when New Mexico is strong, which is a good thing with the way the conference is. Like when New Mexico is good, it's good for the Mountain West. And I'm glad that they're feeling good about themselves, because I have a feeling when they come back to Viejas, what is it here, February 25th, they're going to be in a lot of trouble.
Yep.
All right. So moving on to let's just do a quick Colorado State preview. Tron, give me one thing that makes you nervous about the game against Colorado State.
I mean, without even looking, it has to be Nate Clifford, I think. He is arguably like the most athletic player in the conference. He's a really good player. He has been having a great year. I don't know if he's been as good without somebody like Isaiah Stevens running the ship. But he's the type of player that can almost win you a game single-handedly. They have some other supporting staff, but like Nate Clifford is the guy to watch. So without even looking at anything else, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Where are you at?
Nico Medved, I mean, he's just a good coach. I'm a big fan of Nico Medved. I think he's just a very good coach. Switching the sides to just what makes me optimistic is Colorado State is a terrible offensive rebounding team. They're 319th in the country in offensive rebounds. Nice way to come back for the Aztecs on that one. And then from Evan Mia, the last two times the Aztecs had a defensive efficiency of over 100. After the win at Houston, they were at 109. They gave up 109.4. They were 109.4 in defensive efficiency. The next game against Fresno State, they were at 72.5. And then against Cal Baptist, their defensive efficiency was actually 120.9, which is crazy high, and I'm very surprised to see that. But then the next game against Cal, their defensive efficiency was 59.2. Last game against New Mexico, it was their defensive efficiency was 100.2. I expect them to come back with vengeance on the defensive ball, and I think they're just going to come out with a renewed focus after just what happened. I think it's great that the game is a quick turnaround, that it's a Tuesday night, and they can just kind of throw the tape away and move on to Colorado State, and they're really going to ramp it up. But, back to Colorado State. What Colorado State is bad at is kind of what the Aztecs are bad at, so there's not going to be like any glaring weaknesses that Colorado State has so far this season taken advantage of in their other games. So, all that makes me pretty optimistic. But what about you, Tron? What's something that makes you optimistic?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like what you just said. Like when the strengths and weaknesses are the same, it kind of just goes to who does what they do better. And the Aztecs have more talent. I don't think that's like controversial to say. They have more talent. They have the better coach. They just have the better team in general. That doesn't mean Colorado State can't win, obviously.
Nor I would also put it. Colorado State has been impressive because everybody thought they were going to take a huge step back, and they're 80th in KenPom right now.
Yeah, like they're still a good team, but the Aztecs are just better. And so when both teams are good at the same thing, and when they're bad at the same things, or at least like complementary things, it just comes down to who does what they do better. And I think 9 times out of 10 that's going to be the Aztecs. Plus, they're coming off a loss, and they tend to win after they lose games. They haven't lost 2 in a row in a long time. So that's they got that going for them too.
Nice. All right, before we wrap up, you got anything to plug? Anything out there?
No, I don't think so. Just, thanks everybody for listening to the show, and those of you that engage with me on Blue Sky, keep doing it. I love it.
Pretty cool little community coming around on Blue Sky.
Yeah, it's growing. I just had Jaden Liddy's dad follow me today, so he has come around. So if you are on Blue Sky, go give him a follow if you are so inclined.
Nice. Well, with that being said, again, thank you all so much for listening, per usual. Support your NIL activities, support the NIL activities, the collectives, the stuff that's out there, as always, to make sure that these guys are getting the resources they need. Don't forget to rate, like, and review wherever you get your podcasts. Follow me and Tron on all the socials. Man, but until next time, thanks again for listening to the Aztec Breakdown podcast. Go Aztecs.
Go Aztecs.
On the floor, it's Butler with 2 seconds. He's got to put it up, and he wins it with the jumper.
System's feeling it. Now he's feeling it even more. What it do, Matt Mitchell? Shackle to Flynn for the win. It's good! Oh, Malachi Flynn! On the rim.
2 to go. Butler has to put it up for the win. Butler sticks it at the buzzer.
And a steal. Darion Trammell will coast in for the layup.
Franklin with 2 seconds forces the shot. It's good. The Aztecs advance. They've won it on the shot by the player of the year.
Miller, he put it behind his back. It's taken away by Butler. Lob it up. Lob it down. Big finish. Keyshawn Johnson.
Now we have tasted it. We're coming back. We're coming back.